Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the upcoming partial lunar and annular solar eclipse and a little bit about how they relate to supermoons and micromoons. So this is, of course, the moon. So we're going to take a look at the moon here while it's full, or at least pretty close to full. The partial lunar eclipse is going to be, well, very much a partial. The moon is going to pretty much skirt the shadow of the Earth. A little bit of the Earth's shadow is going to pass onto the moon. There we go. It's subtle, so I hope you can see it. The Earth's shadow is going to pass a little bit onto the moon, mostly the penumbra, and then a little bit of the umbra. So this is here almost 3 o'clock in the morning on the 18th. So it's the full moon that we will see on the 17th, the night of the 17th. Of course, you're going to have to wait until after midnight for it to be 100% full instead of just 99% full. And then here about 3 o'clock in the morning, quarter to 3 in the morning, 20 to 3, that's when we're going to see some of the umbra on the moon. We're not going to get any redness because the moon isn't getting completely blocked out by our shadow. There is still light from the sun falling on the moon, and there's the penumbra moving off, and it's all over by almost 5 o'clock in the morning, just before the sunrise. So this is only a partial eclipse. The moon isn't directly behind the Earth, but we are seeing a supermoon. It's closer to us here than it normally is. And also, when the moon crosses the ecliptic behind us, moving into our shadow, there is a good chance that it will cross the ecliptic in front of us, passing in front of the sun on the other end of its orbit. And that is what's going to happen for this lunar cycle. So this partial lunar eclipse that we're seeing on the 18th of September, the night of the 17th, the morning of the 18th, you'll really see it best at about 20 to 3. It pairs up. Because I took away the atmosphere, the light of the moon wasn't being refracted. The moon appears a little bit higher in the sky than it actually is because of our atmosphere bending the light. If we get rid of the atmosphere, it appears to drop down a little bit. So without the atmosphere in the way, I'm going to take another quick look at that eclipse. There we go. So we can really see the dimming effect of the penumbra there. So the penumbra is sort of the outer shadow, the half shadow of the Earth. And then the umbra comes in, the really dark portion. So yeah, about 20 to 3, this really seems to be the best time to see it. You're going to see the most amount of the umbra on the moon. But this may even be difficult to see with the naked eye. You really have to pay attention to catch it. With a telescope or binoculars, it's going to be a lot easier. And of course, because this is a full super moon, as full as it can get and pretty close to the Earth, I would recommend using an aperture at the front of your telescope, something to choke down the amount of light that's coming through, or some sort of filter, something to just make the moon a little bit less intense. If you're looking at the moon through a telescope when it's completely full on a perfectly clear night, when it's a supermoon, it can be uncomfortably bright. We are looking at sunlight here, even if it is reflected off the moon. So I've gotten rid of the ground, I've gotten rid of the atmosphere so that we can move forward to the new moon. There we go, there's the new moon, and from Ireland, we will be, of course, not able to see it, but it will be something like this. Now, if I move through time here with the ground out of the way, I should be able... No, we're just too high up on the planet. So, of course, if the solar eclipse was happening in the same hemisphere as Ireland, but visible when it's nighttime for us and daytime from somewhere else, if this eclipse was visible at our latitude, then looking through the Earth, we'd be able to see it. Of course, we still wouldn't actually be able to see it from here in Ireland. The reason we're not seeing it is because it's not visible in our hemisphere. That's not where people are going to be able to see this eclipse. There are a few places where it's going to be visible. So the lunar eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse, is visible over a good chunk of the Earth, a large region of space. It's going to be visible in Africa and Europe and even parts of the Americas. Whereas the annular solar eclipse, and I hope I've gotten this right, the Earth is a big place. I think, there we go. So we're here in the very bottom of South America, Chile and Argentina. We're probably around Patagonia, around the Patagonian ice sheet. I'll bring up the map again just so that I can check. but we should be, yeah, we're around there. That would be the Patagonian ice sheet, all of the ice down there in Patagonia. So I guess we're a little bit higher than that, just across the bottom of South America. Now this solar eclipse, this annular solar eclipse, is going to be visible along a big swath of the Pacific as well, but unless you're living on one of the islands in the Pacific, it's going to be very difficult to see it. There will be an annular solar eclipse for various portions of the Pacific. Let's get the atmosphere back on. Now, this is an annular solar eclipse. It is not a total solar eclipse. So that means even though the moon is going to be in front of the sun, it does look like I'm a little bit off the best place to see it, but I can make an adjustment for that in a minute. Even if you were in exactly the right place to see this happening completely, the moon is further from the Earth during this eclipse. It is the equivalent of a micromoon, the opposite of a supermoon, because the moon is at its closest to us when it's behind us. Then when it's in front of us for this lunar cycle, it's going to be at its furthest from us. Now, I'm trying to see, it's not completely total from here, so I'm going to have to shift things around just a little bit to try and get it looking total. Maybe I have to be a little bit lower. It is tricky sometimes to get these things to balance out because, of course, solar eclipses are only visible from very specific locations. Very specific coordinates will give you the actual total eclipse, or in this case, the maximum of the annular eclipse. I am definitely after getting closer, but I think I've gone a little bit past the best location now, so we'll move things around just a little bit more in the hopes that I can find it. It is only going to be annular. It's not going to be a total eclipse. So even from the best possible location, you won't get to see the corona of the sun. The moon isn't going to block out enough of the sun for just the outer atmosphere to be visible. The bright photosphere, the bright main part of the sun is still going to be there, and that's going to be bright enough. That's going to be bright enough to block out the corona. We won't be able to see it. So this looks a little bit better. It is. That is pretty close. I am happy with that. So we'll get rid of the location here. We can see the moon completely in front of the sun, and the moon is completely surrounded by this ring of the sun. Now, it's not dead center, but this is an annular solar eclipse. We can see that the moon is absolutely lining up with the sun, but the moon is too far from us to block out the sun completely. If the moon was closer to us, then it would. We can even see it down here. Annular 0.925. It's not perfectly 1-to-1. It's obscuring 85.72%, so we're still seeing a little bit more than 10% of the sun around the outside. So this is going to be visible from certain locations on Earth, but as we can see, I'll bring the ground back up. So as we can see, even at the maximum point of the eclipse, the sky doesn't get that much darker. So looking at the whole sky here, it looks like this is going to be visible reasonably early in the morning for people in the right location. So moving back towards sunrise there, the moon is no longer in line with the sun. And moving forward, just to see if anything gets fainter. Not really. I guess it maybe gets a little bit darker there for a minute, but nowhere near the darkness that you could see in a total solar eclipse. And by here, the moon should have fully moved off the disk of the sun. Nearly. There's still a little bit of the moon just barely blocking out part of the sun there. If we move just a little bit further forward, oh, that's back. There we go. So definitely by 2 o'clock, the moon is no longer going to be blocking out any part of the sun at all. So if you are in Tierra del Fuego or Patagonia, if you're down in that southern region of Chile or Argentina, you are going to be able to see this, an annular solar eclipse. It is, as I mentioned, also visible across large swaths of the Pacific. However, every kind of eclipse, and even more so with an annular eclipse, never look directly at the sun. So yeah, right down there, right down by Patagonia, that is where it's going to be visible. So I wouldn't recommend pointing a telescope at any kind of solar eclipse. The heat generated can do a lot of damage to your telescope. The normal kind of viewing precautions that you'd use for any other eclipse, eclipse glasses, welder's glass, to protect your eyes from looking at the sun, or using some sort of projection system like a pinhole camera, making a pinhole in a shoebox and watching the light getting projected out the other side or projected onto a piece of paper. That's how I'd recommend looking at this eclipse. And even though it's annular and not total, it's absolutely worth seeing. It's still a really, really cool phenomenon. It's an interesting thing to see this kind of a ring of fire, this bright ring around the moon. It almost makes the sun and the moon kind of look like an eye or something. It's very different to a total solar eclipse, but still a very interesting phenomenon to catch. And of course, if you're not down in South America, if you're up here in Europe with me, then of course you'll still get to see the partial lunar eclipse that's coming up just at the end of this month, just at the end of September. I suppose technically end of next month, based on the date that this video will be going out. Well, that's us back here. This is what our sky will look like on the 2nd of October while the eclipse is happening. So, of course, in the middle of the night, we won't get to see it. But you have now gotten to see it here, at least. So I hope that you enjoyed this video looking at those eclipses. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to like it. If you'd like to see more, then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which will indicate that I need to make more videos. And hopefully I will see you back here for the next one. You can also read some of this information on my website, queevinscontent.ie, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.